Hey guys, just wanted to show you what my workflow is when creating a character. So what I do is I subdivide the work in small phases, such as the designing phase, the 3D modeling phase, the rig and animation phase, and then the final touches. So every little thing that makes my character look better. Here you can see that I'm on my designing phase. At this moment I throw every idea I have on the canvas, just like brainstorming, and then I start drawing. I usually draw with pen and paper, but for the sake of this video I wanted to try digital drawing, also because it's easier to fix mistakes. As you can see, I'm going to create a security guard character who has a red uniform, a red hat and a flashlight, and by the end of this video he'll also have a radio or a walkie-talkie. And this is what I call final touches, as I said before. Once I finish drawing the main form of my character, I start adding color, so that I can choose the correct color palette. And since my character is a guard, he is something that the player needs to avoid. So if you've seen my video where I talk about the importance of color temperature, go watch it if you haven't. You'll know that we need warm colors, and that is why I chose red for the color of his uniform, as red is a warm color, so players will know to avoid him when they see him. During the second phase, what I usually do is I paste my reference into Blender so that I have a clear view of what I'm about to model, and then I'll start by adding a subdivided cube that I'll transform into a head by roughly following the drawn shape. I really like to mirror one side of the model so that I have to only work on the left side, and the right side will come along as I model. And this saves a lot of time, especially when building humanoid characters, and it forces the model to be perfectly mirrored. The hard part about this phase is actually getting the right proportions and the right shape. It is not difficult to get a shape that you don't like, so you spend about 20 minutes on that single shape because you want it to be perfect. If you're a Blender user, you probably noticed that I'm not using a single material with a texture applied to it, but instead I'm using different materials, and that is my way to do it. I know it may be not really optimal to do it this way, but that's the way I like to do it because it saves me a lot of time, and I don't really care if it's better to create one single texture and apply it with UV unwrapping. That costs me a lot of time. Also, using different materials makes my work easier once I'm inside Unreal, because Unreal lets me change the color of the materials. So if something isn't quite right inside the lights of Unreal, I can change the color. So maybe if I don't like a red color, a red material, I can turn it to pink, or I can turn it to purple without having to change an entire texture, an entire image. Every time I add a new object to the mesh, like the eyes, I usually add a new cube, and then I apply a subdivision modifier so that I can get a more organic looking mesh. Characters like this usually take about 4 hours to create, and since I may not have 4 straight hours of free time in a day, I might split the work in different days, and this particular character took me about 2 days. The body of the character was the trickiest part, since I wanted to give him that kind of wave shape, but didn't want him to look too fat or too skinny. In fact, I focused especially on the body shape, and at the end of the modeling phase I made his waist smaller, so to give him more like a V-taper look. This character, like other characters from a game, has 2 sets of eyes and 2 sets of arms. I actually forgot the arms on the drawing, but they will appear on the finished model, and this is because the character is meant to be an anthropomorphic spider. This means it's a spider with human features, and in the story of my game this is because toxic waste has been thrown on this lake, and every fish in the lake transformed into radioactive spiders. So from that point on, almost every single creature in this game is a spider. And that's why I'm creating a character who has 2 sets of eyes and 2 sets of arms. For making the arms, I just use a small cylinder, and I attach a hand I made for every model at the end of it. And this is great because I don't have to remake the hand every single time I create a new model. I just have that one hand and I can copy it and paste it on every character I want. What I'm doing now is I'm just opening Unreal Engine, opening my game in Unreal Engine so that I can see if the model looks good in the lights of Unreal Engine, and also if the proportions are good, and if I have to make some changes to how my model looks. If there's a problem with the materials, as I said before, I can just change the color of the materials. And if there's a problem with the proportions, I'll have to go back to Blender to fix this problem. Back in Blender, I created a skeleton for my mesh, and what the skeleton is that it is a series of bones that help the vertices move together with the animations. And what I'm doing now is I'm painting the vertices so that the bones know with how much intensity they'll have to move the parts of the mesh. And this technique is in fact called weight painting because you paint the weight with how the bones move the mesh. Blender has by default an option that gives you an automatic weight painting, but you still have to put some work into it because it is not always perfect, and sometimes you have some weird artifacts that make your mesh really bad to look at. What you're seeing right now is a walk cycle, and every time I create one of these I take reference from one of these two pictures, and walk cycle is basically a series of frames that give the impression that the character is moving, and they can be broken into four main parts, which are two passing stages and two contact points. So basically here I'm playing my animation out and seeing if something is wrong, so that I can adjust it by changing the values on the weight painting. And in here the leg has a lot of red color, so this means that the bone of the leg has maximum control over the mesh of the leg, and if a part of the mesh has a lot of blue color, this means that it has no control over that one mesh. I'm also using a technique called inverse kinematics, and what it does is it calculates every small rotation the bones have to do to make the hand reach a certain location or to make the foot reach a certain location. Now I'm replacing into Unreal the static mesh I imported earlier with the new skeletal mesh with the bones and everything, also the animations, and I'm trying to see if the animation speed matches the walking speed of the character, and also if there are problems with the bones. As you can see, there's a small problem. In fact, the feet are pointing towards each other, and I'm gonna have to fix it on Blender. Okay, now the character is almost finished. I just need to add some final touches, such as the flashlight or the radio. And these two meshes are separated from the original mesh of the character because I want him to be able to grab them and do some action with them and make them work with animations. And I'm going to create a small idle animation that plays when the character is standing still, and this small animation will blend with the running or walking animations once the character changes its velocity. So here's the final result. As you can see, I've added a small pocket on his chest and also a small ID card and some patches on his shoulders. And you can see that I've also made his waist look smaller, and I think this looks better. This gives him more the feeling of the wavy feeling I was looking for, and I hope you like it, and we'll see you on the next video. Cheers!
Please,